listeners, and welcome to SCP Authors Anomalous, where authors on the SCP Foundation Wiki read out their SCP articles and talk about them. If you're a fan of the SCP Wiki, an author, or even just someone who enjoys the sound of someone talking about something they love, you're in the right place. There are two types of episode we'll be doing on this podcast: casual and theatrical. Casual episodes will just involve an SCP author or multiple authors reading out their works and discussing them casually. Theatrical episodes will be voice acted by tons of cool creators and, of course, authors. Casual episodes will be marked by a capital C at the beginning of the title, and theatrical episodes will be marked by a capital T. Very simple. I think you'll enjoy both, though. They both contain the commentary of the authors. And they're both very fun to record. I just wanted to do two different styles because honestly, I think it is just kind of fun to do both. I like them both a lot. It's just I'm having fun here. All right, leave me alone. I recorded this little bit separately from the rest of this, so do excuse the shift in sound quality. See, funny thing, I wrote a script for this whole thing, but I completely forgot to explain what the podcast actually is. So I'm just recording this now after actually recording the rest of it and putting it at the beginning. Now we're gonna shift it over to junior researcher Sean Saxon to give you the lowdown on what's going on in the SCP Foundation, in case you're not already aware of it. See you guys later. Hello and welcome to the SCP Foundation. I'm junior researcher Sean Saxon, and I've been tasked by my superiors to be the leading voice in a new training video for D-Class and new personnel due to my familiarity with long audio recordings. If you think my voice sounds familiar, that means you likely know me from my podcast, Create Stuff, or various other things I'm involved in. If you don't, then may I suggest my interview with DJ Cactus. This interview is classified to all uninvolved with the Foundation's workings, but if you can listen to this, then you can access it now. We talk about the Foundation quite a bit in there. It's worth a listen. Oh, and if you already know about the Foundation, you're free to not listen to this. Not sure how you found out any info about it, but whatever floats your boat. You won't find anything interesting in this recording if you know what this place is about already. Definitely still check out some other recordings though. And if you'll allow me, I'm just gonna slip out of character for a single moment. The following is an amalgamation of various guides on the SCP Wiki, all of which are linked in the description. If you don't understand anything, don't worry about it. This stuff is confusing, but none of this information is absolutely necessary to enjoying the Wiki. Don't let this be a barrier to entry for you. And also, you should note that the SCP Wiki, as well as this podcast, is all within the Creative Commons license. By that, I mean the SCP podcast I'm doing here, not Create Stuff. These are separate projects. Also, just, if you don't know what the SCP Wiki is at all, just keep listening, I explain it, I promise. No more delay, onwards. But first, a letter from the Administrator. Mankind in its present state has been around for 250,000 years, yet only the last 4,000 have been of any significance. So what did we do for nearly 250,000 years? We huddled in caves and around small fires, fearful of the things that we didn't understand. It was more than explaining why the sun came up. It was the mystery of enormous birds with men and rocks that came to life. So we called them gods and demons and begged them to spare us and prayed for salvation. In time, their numbers dwindled and ours rose. The world began to make more sense when there are fewer things to fear, yet the unexplained can never truly go away, as if the universe demands the absurd and impossible. Mankind must not go back to hiding in fear. No one else will protect us, and we must stand up for ourselves. While the rest of mankind dwells in the light, we must stand in the darkness to fight it, contain it, and shield it from the eyes of the public, so that others may live in a sane and normal world. We secure, we contain, we protect. The Administrator. The following is the mission statement of the SCP Foundation. Operating clandestine and worldwide, the Foundation operates beyond jurisdiction, empowered and entrusted by every major national government with the task of containing anomalous objects, entities, and phenomena. These anomalies pose a significant threat to global security by threatening either physical or psychological harm. The Foundation operates to maintain normalcy so that the worldwide civilian population can live and go on with their daily lives without fear, mistrust, or doubt in their personal beliefs, and to maintain human independence from extraterrestrial, extradimensional, and other extra-normal influence. Our mission is threefold. Secure. The Foundation secures anomalies with the goal of preventing them from falling into the hands of civilian or rival agencies through extensive observation and surveillance, and by acting to intercept such anomalies at the earliest opportunity. Contain. The Foundation contains anomalies with the goal of preventing their influence or effect from spreading, by either relocating, concealing, or dismantling such anomalies, or by suppressing or preventing public dissemination of knowledge thereof. Protect. The Foundation protects humanity from the effects of such anomalies as well as the anomalies themselves until such time that they are either fully understood or new theories of science can be devised based on their properties and behavior. The Foundation may also neutralize or destroy anomalies as an option of last resort if they are determined to be too dangerous to be contained. Foundation operations. Foundation covert and clandestine operations are undertaken across the globe in pursuit of our primary mission. Special containment procedures. The Foundation maintains an extensive database of information regarding anomalies requiring special containment procedures, commonly referred to as SCPs. The primary Foundation database contains The primary Foundation database contains summaries of such anomalies and emergency procedures for maintaining or re-establishing safe containment in the case of a containment breach or other event. Anomalies may take many forms, be it an object, an entity, a location, or a freestanding phenomenon. These anomalies are categorized into one of several object classes and are either contained at one of the Foundation's myriad security facilities or contained on-site if relocation is deemed unfeasible. Operational security. The Foundation operates with the utmost secrecy. All Foundation personnel must observe the security clearance levels as well as need-to-know and compartmentalization of information. Personnel found in violation of Foundation security protocols will be identified, detained, and subject to disciplinary action. Rival agencies and groups of interest. The Foundation is not the only organization with knowledge of and capability to interact with or utilize anomalies. While some of these groups of interest have similar goals and may cooperate with us on the issues of global security, many more are opportunistic and profit-oriented, seeking to adapt or use anomalies to their own ends. Foundation personnel are instructed to treat individuals from such groups with suspicion at all times, and collaboration with such groups without the explicit prior consent of Foundation leadership will be cause for termination or other disciplinary action. Alright, out of character again. The SCP Wiki is a collaborative urban fantasy writing website about the fictional SCP Foundation, a secretive organization that contains anomalous or supernatural items and entities away from the eyes of the public. The bulk of the SCP Wiki's content is in the various SCP series, currently ranging from 1 to 7, and the Foundation Tales and Canons. There is also a great deal of jargon specific to the SCP Wiki, which I will now briefly explain. All anomalous objects, entities, and phenomena requiring special containment procedures are assigned an object class. An object class is a part of the standard SCP template and serves as a rough indicator for how difficult an object is to contain. In-universe, object classes are for the purpose of identifying containment needs, research priority, budgeting, and other considerations. An SCP's object class is determined by a number of factors, but the most important factors are the difficulty and the purpose of its containment. Primary classes. These are most common object classes used in the SCP articles and make up the bulk of the objects. Safe. Safe class SCPs are anomalies that are easily and safely contained. This is often due to the fact that the anomalies require a specific and conscious activation or trigger for their effect to show. Classifying an SCP as safe, however, does not mean that handling or activating it does not pose a threat. Euclid. Euclid-class SCPs are anomalies that require more resources to contain completely or where containment isn't always reliable. Usually this is because the SCP is insufficiently understood or inherently unpredictable. This object class encompasses most objects that don't fall into safe or Keter. Keter, also pronounced Keter by people who are wrong. Keter-class SCPs are anomalies that are exceedingly difficult to contain consistently or reliably. Keter-class SCPs are anomalies that are exceedingly difficult to contain consistently or reliably, with containment procedures often being extensive and complex. A Keter SCP does not mean the SCP is dangerous, just that it is simply very difficult to contain. Safe, Euclid, and Keter are the three main and most common classifications. However, there are many more primary classifications. If you're itching to begin listening to some of the readings, feel free to go do so now. You should be able to understand them. But if you want to know more, I'm still here and you can come back at any time. The following is a little bit more deep information, but it'll still help you get a better understanding of everything that's going on. So here are some more primary object classes. Thaumiel. Thaumiel class SCPs are anomalies that the Foundation specifically uses to contain other SCPs. Neutralized. Neutralized SCPs are anomalies that are no longer anomalous, either through having been destroyed or disabled. Apollyon. Apollyon class SCPs are anomalies that cannot be contained, are expected to breach containment imminently, or some other similar scenario. Such anomalies are usually associated with world-ending threats or a K-class scenario of some kind, and require massive effort from the Foundation to deal with. And if you want to know what a K-class scenario is, keep listening. Archon. Archon-class SCPs are anomalies that could theoretically be contained, but are best left uncontained for some reason. Archon SCPs may be a part of consensus reality that is difficult to fully contain, or may have adverse effects if put into containment. These SCPs are not uncontainable. The defining features of the class is that the Foundation chooses to not put the anomaly into containment. And there are a few non-standard object classes, which are subclasses that supplement the object's primary classification. Explained. Explained SCPs are usually articles about anomalies that are completely and fully understood to the point where their effects are now explainable by mainstream science or phenomena that have been debunked or falsely mistaken as an anomaly. Esoteric/narrative classes. Esoteric object classes, also occasionally referred to as narrative classes, are object classes that do not fall into any of the above sections. They are only really used once and are created to further the narrative in a particular SCP. You'll very rarely see those, and most people on the site really don't like them. Next, I have a few terms relating to personnel within the Foundation and their classifications. I won't be going into great detail here. Check the description for the link to the guide this is from if you'd like to see them in depth. There's a lot more than what I'm talking about. Foundation security clearances granted to personnel represent the highest level or type of information to which they can be granted access. These range from level 0 to level 5. Level 0 is granted to clinical, janitorial, and clerical personnel who don't need any knowledge from the database. Level 1 is a slight step up, allowing some access to SCP information where it is needed. Level 2, 3, and 4 are for researchers and other personnel who need to know stuff on a more advanced level, though mostly researchers. The amount of access given rises as the level increases. Level 5 is given to members of the O5 Council, also known as the Overseer Council, as well as some select staff members. It is the highest clearance level and gives essentially unlimited access to the database. There are also 5 classes of personnel. These are assigned to personnel based on their proximity to potentially dangerous anomalous objects, entities, or phenomena. The only one you really need to know about is Class D. Class D personnel are expendable personnel used to handle extremely hazardous anomalies. Class D personnel are typically drawn worldwide from the ranks of prison inmates convicted of violent crimes, especially those on death row. They are essentially the lab rats and guinea pigs of the Foundation. You'll be hearing about them pretty often. And now, I present to you a bunch of random terms that are important but don't quite fit what I've already mentioned. These are definitions from various guides on the wiki, though the majority are from Dr. Mackenzie's glossary of terms. Mobile Task Forces. Mobile Task Forces, often abbreviated to MTFs, are specialist units comprised of veteran field personnel drawn from all over the Foundation. These task forces are mobilized to deal with threats of a specific nature and can include anything from field researchers specializing in a particular type of anomaly to heavily armed combat units tasked with securing certain types of hostile anomalous entities. The O5 Council. The O5 Council refers to a committee consisting of the highest-ranking directors of the Foundation. With complete access to all information regarding anomalies and containment, the O5 Council oversees all Foundation operations worldwide and directs its long-term strategic plans. The identities of all O5 Council members is classified. All Council members are referred to only by their numeric designations, O51 through O513. Tale. These are stories, narratives, and even in-universe reports written within the context of the Foundation that don't fit into the standard template of an SCP article. So they're like, pretty much normal fiction, to an extent. Canon. The SCP Wiki lacks an established canon. Many articles contradict others in various aspects. To quote the Canon Hub, it's up to you, as the reader, to decide what you believe and what you embrace as the heart of the universe. I will also note that there are many established canons, which many authors have contributed to and collaborated on. These canons usually have a few notable things that all stories within them share. For example, in the Broken Masquerade canon, the Foundation has undergone a Broken Masquerade scenario, meaning that it has become fully public knowledge. Joke SCPs. These are SCPs written in a silly or over-the-top manner, primarily intended for humor. Addendum, an additional section of an SCP article that either expands on specific aspects of the primary description, shows the progression of information over time, or otherwise provides additional insight that does not fit into the description block. All test logs, interviews, and exploratory information are generally written as addenda. Amnestic. Drugs, procedures, or devices that induce memory loss when administered to an individual. These are often used to wipe the memories of civilian witnesses to maintain deniability of Foundation operations. Cognitohazard. A term used to refer to objects that are dangerous to sense or perceive, whether through sight, sound, smell, taste, or feeling. Infohazard. A term used to refer to objects that are dangerous to know about. Infohazards differ from cognitohazards in that cognitohazards require direct contact, whereas infohazards may spread simply through people telling each other about them. Memetic. Here's an excerpt from the Understanding Memetics Guide. Memetic SCPs are SCPs which involve ideas and symbols which trigger response in those who understand them. For example, if I showed you a picture of a house and it caused you to instantly believe the Earth is flat, that image could be considered a meme, or a memetic SCP. This is a complicated concept. You can check out the Understanding Memetics Guide below if you'd like a better understanding. You'll also get to understand it better more as you hear and or read more memetic SCPs. Anti-memetic, a term used to describe an object that cannot be remembered or has some property that causes you to forget things, usually about it. K-class scenarios. K-class scenarios are hypothetical situations that could have drastic effects on normality or reality, including the end of the world. The Foundation games out what can happen in these events, and authors on the wiki often reference these contingency plans, or times they have failed. Most notable is the XK-class End of the World event, which typically denotes a catastrophic event resulting in the destruction of human society, if not the entire human species. Originally conceived as a biblical or religious apocalypse, it has expanded to its current rough designation. And for the last bit of this, I'll quickly describe some groups of interest, or groups that are aware of anomalous stuff, but are not the SCP Foundation. These descriptions come from the groups of interest list, which is linked below. I simply included the ones which I've seen mentioned on the wiki the most, and which are also, honestly, my personal favorites. Are we cool yet? A collection of anomalous artists, also called anartists, members of Arbiculiat, are capable of either obtaining or producing anomalous objects and entities and using them to create art installations. These installations are placed for maximum public exposure and have been fatal to bystanders. The phrase Arbiculiat is always present in some way, often as an abbreviation AWCY. The Chaos Insurgency. The Chaos Insurgency. The Chaos Insurgency is a splinter group of the Foundation created by a rogue cell that went AWOL with several SCP objects in 1924. Since then, the Insurgency has become a major player on the world stage, using the anomalies that it obtains for its own benefit and to consolidate its global power base. This organization is directly antagonistic to the Foundation, using deadly force to attempt to prevent Foundation containment of multiple anomalies. The Church of the Broken God. Led by one Robert Bomaro, the Church of the Broken God is a group of zealots, believing many of the SCP items to be part of a god that was broken after the creation of the universe. By restoring it to its whole state, they will also supposedly gain godhood. They are extremely hostile to Foundation operatives, branding them heretics, and will attempt to kill operatives and break containment of SCP items. Dr. Wondertainment. Dr. Wondertainment, whether an individual or collective entity, is capable of producing anomalous artifacts and entities which themselves thematically resemble children's toys. The nature of these objects and devices varies, although all were clearly intended to be utilized by children. Gamers Against Weed. Gamers Against Weed is a loosely organized confederation of anomalous individuals, as well as associates thereof, that produce or procure anomalies for satirical purposes and/or for their own amusement. The Global Occult Coalition. The GOC are a largely political force, seeing themselves as the police of the paranormal world. They pride themselves on destroying supernatural entities and make use of the most high-tech experimental technology possible, obtained from their benefactors. Many potential SCPs have been destroyed by them before the Foundation could obtain and contain them. They have been both on the side of the Foundation and against it at times, depending on the situation. They largely hold the Foundation in contempt for their use and containment of SCP items rather than their out-and-out destruction. Marshall Carter and Dark Ltd. A club based in London, England, Marshall Carter and Dark Ltd. Is known for collecting rare and obscure items, along with providing its members the most exclusive, expensive, and rare experiences available. These activities have resulted in conflict with the Foundation on numerous occasions. The group is not known for the use of force. They prefer to apply extreme financial and political pressure to achieve their goals. The Serpent's Hand. The Serpent's Hand is a small but formidable organization responsible for several security breaches. The group seems to embrace the use and existence of paranormal items, and in particular seems to embrace humanoid and sentient SCPs. The Serpent's Hand has been highly vocal in criticizing the containment and destruction of these SCPs, especially those which are fully human and which are not particularly destructive. The Serpent's Hand seems primarily based in an anomalous location called the Wanderer's Library, a building accessed through portals found in many different parts of the world. Direct assaults on the library have so far proven unfeasible, even when entrance could be found. However, initial intelligence seems to suggest that the Hand has little understanding or control over the place. Also notable is that there is a sister site of the SCP Foundation known as the Wanderer's Library, where people write more fantasy-oriented stories that are found within the place known as the Wanderer's Library. It's pretty cool. You might hear a few readings from there at some point in the series. I'm not sure yet. I like it a lot, though. It's very neat, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's really underrated compared to the SCP Wiki. You guys should go check it out if you like the Wiki. And with that, I think I'm done. I hope this was useful to you, and if you'd like to learn more, please check out the links in the description. There is so much that I didn't include here. I'm going to quickly rattle off the name of a lot of authors that helped contribute to this stuff, and I'm also going to thank a few people who gave me some advice relating to this podcast. Thank you so much to all of the following people who work within the Foundation, and who have worked on the Wiki in the past, and who currently work on it now. These are all people associated with the various guides I've read. Does it sound like I had to record this part and edit it in later? That is because I did. Haha, I'm so good at this. Screw you, pass me. I don't know exactly what every person did, because it's a little bit unclear in some places, but I'm going to thank them anyways. I will also say very quickly that there are some people who are no longer involved in the Foundation who don't really want to be associated with it, as far as I know, so I'm not going to mention them. Thank you so much to Elena, Quicken Groven, Quick, thanks Quick, Troy L, Sirens, Ron John Silver, Jacob Conwell, Decibels, Echo 4 Delta, Dr. Everett Mann, The Deadly Moose, and to all other members of the senior staff. Seriously, I couldn't be doing this podcast if you weren't doing such an awesome job running the site. Appreciate you all a lot. And also, just to thank a few people who gave me some advice relating to this, I want to especially thank Ian has opinions, moderately mediocre, and B. Thank you guys a lot. And also, really big thanks to DJ Cactus, top-rated author on the site, and Darnell from Discovering SCP podcast. Yep, had to edit this in again. I'm so great at my job. Both active members of the community and authors on the site who gave me some really helpful advice on this podcast. Seriously, without their advice, I don't know if I would have even been able to start this, without their advice, this might have just crashed and burned. Frankly, could not thank them enough. Also, a very quick thank you to some people who helped me come up with the name SCP Authors Anomalous. Thank you so much, Anel, Mushroom Musician, and Ranch, all of some of my friends from L'Manberg the Musical, which is something you guys should check out. Very, very different from what the SCP Wiki covers, probably, but it's still cool, I promise you. And thank you so much to you, listener. I appreciate you giving this series a try a lot. If you're willing to, please leave a rating or like the video or depending on where you're watching it, do the thing that you do, you know? I'd appreciate that a lot. It seriously helps me out a ton. And if you think the SCP Wiki sounds cool, you should also go check it out and read articles. Also, if you have a specific article you want me to include in this podcast, just let me know. And with that, I shall send you off to enjoy the first actual recording of the podcast. I promise you, it's a banger. See you all next time.